I'm Dr. Nick Sutton, and I'm in the library here at the Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies, which is on Magdalen Street in the centre of Oxford. I'd like to introduce you to this module, Understanding the Hindu Identity, and just run briefly through the contents. This module is basically an overview of Hindu studies, and all of the topics we touch upon here are covered in more detail elsewhere in the course as a whole. In the first session, we look at the idea of the Hindu identity and consider what it means to be a Hindu and how do you define a person as a Hindu. Is it by birth or is it by some sort of belief system that a person adopts? We then move on to look at the history of Hinduism, looking at the different phases from the Vedic times through the Buddhist period, and then the revival of Hinduism led by Shankaracharya and other teachers, and then looking at the impact of foreign invasion, Islamic rule, British rule, and finally the coming through to the modern period and the reformers of Hinduism. In the third session, we explore Hindu scripture and look at the role that scripture plays in the practice of Hinduism, the nature of scripture as a source of authority, and also we review the principal scriptures employed by the Hindu tradition. We'll then move on and look at Hindu philosophy, the theology, the teachings of the Hindu tradition on the nature of God, the nature of the world, and the nature of the individual living beings. Because Hinduism doesn't have a single theological position to take, but rather it covers a range of different belief systems. It's sometimes said that every belief about God is to be found somewhere within the Hindu tradition. Okay, after we've looked at that, we'll move on to look not just at the beliefs that Hinduism offers, but also the practices that are based on those beliefs. And just as there's a range of different beliefs, there are also a range of different practices that are based on those belief systems. So, for example, where there is a belief, a philosophy of inner divinity, then the religious practice becomes one of inner exploration, as we find in the yoga systems, where the belief system is about an external deity, Vishnu or Shiva. Then the religious practice based on that belief system is one of looking outwards to that deity and engaging in various acts of worship to him or her, indeed. So we'll be looking therefore at the different types of religious practice, the ancient Vedic practice, the yogya, the meditational practices of yoga, and the pujas that take place in the Hindu temples dedicated to the great deities. After we've looked at Hindu practice, we'll move forward and consider the role that Hinduism plays within society, and in particular here we'll place emphasis on ideas on caste and gender, looking back to the ancient tradition, the ancient teachings on varna and the dharma of women, and seeing how they have been interpreted and translated throughout Hindu history into the modern era. And of course we will also consider under that heading the beginnings of the reform of Hinduism, the major transformations in Hindu society that have taken place in the last 100 years, driven by leaders such as Gandhi, Vivekananda, Dayanand Saraswati, etc. And after having looked at that consideration of Hindu society, we'll move naturally onwards to look at modern Hinduism, the way that the ancient tradition has been reinterpreted and in certain cases reformulated so as to meet the needs of a modern community and a modern society. And in particular, we'll be focusing on teachers such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Dayananda Saraswati, the founder of the Arya Samaj, and then Swami Vivekananda, and Mahatma Gandhi, all major figures in the modern development of Hinduism who have been active in shaping the tradition that we know today. So overall, this module introduces you to a range of different topics which can be studied in more detail in subsequent elements of the course.